Welcome back to MaxBet Podcast. I'm here with Emily Haruko. Did I say that right?
You got it.
I got it. I nailed it the first time. So thank you so much for being here today.
I'm so excited to be here with you, Hillary. Thanks for having me.
I'm so glad that we made this happen. I'm very impressed that you came all the way out here.
Well, thank you. It helped that you drove me, so thank you.
I know you didn't have much choice. Yeah. So you've been in the industry for a long time. We were talking on the way over here. You've had quite the transition into this new role that you're in now.
Yes. So, yeah, I would say that, I've been industry adjacent for a very long time. So, as I mentioned, my career in gaming started in iGaming when I was based in Europe in 2009. So that was my sort of step into the industry. And then when I had kids, I couldn't work in the capacity where I needed to travel in the role that I had. So I did my coaching certification as a little bit of a means for my own personal growth, and had a light bulb moment where this is what I should be doing. And, as you already know, but I'll share with your audience that, the apple doesn't fall far, as they say. My dad's considered one of the pioneers of the coaching industry. The philosophy when he was, in the early 80s, working with a group of men who were taking the concept of sports coaching and psychology and bringing that into business. And his late business partner was quoted by saying, "In any endeavor where human performance matters, coaching is present." So you think about athletes, orchestras, dancers, there's rehearsal time. And we don't do that in business enough. It's getting more common nowadays, especially over the last, 40, 50 years. And then 2.5 years ago, I started Soroca, so a B2B professional services firm bringing transformational coaching and consulting to tech.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people, especially in corporate, it's very common to do like the Enneagram and the, Myers-Briggs and all of those
the
tests.
DISC assessment.
Yes. And then, they'll bring in people for the day to, do these leadership or coaching programs. What do you think is like the most valuable? If someone were to say, hey, we want to bring you in, but we're not quite sure, like, what would you suggest to focus on? What would be like your top things?
Honestly, I recommend everyone starting with emotional intelligence training. It's really around self-awareness, right? And there's so much research that shows that when we cultivate our EQ, it actually significantly impacts the bottom line, both personally and for the business. So some research shows Coca-Cola execs did emotional intelligence training and outperformed their targets by 15% the following year. And if you think about an organization like Coca-Cola, 15% of their bottom line is significant.
Yeah.
We know that there's around 80% of our personal performance compensation that comes from our performance around how we engineer inside of our relationships. So essentially communication. So I usually start with like a baseline of emotional intelligence training. Every group is different, so we customize our approach based on what the objectives are. So for example, I had a client recently and they were like, we've done robust emotional intelligence training. I was like, great, we won't incorporate that into the curriculum at all. We can move more into, principles of communication, executive presence, public speaking. How are we influencing and leading our teams as opposed to just managing them? So personally, I really believe that leadership is really the future's business. And management, while a part of leadership, is about usually managing the past, right, and the present. And when we talk about cultivating leaders or leadership, creating like a real vision for an organization, leadership is about your ability to take people into the unknown, right? If I'm going to follow you as the leader, the future has yet to be determined. And I'm going to trust you to take me there, then you're going to have to, have some skills to enroll me and inspire me in what that vision is, let alone provide an environment where you're going to get the best performance out of me to help us get there. So that's typically where I would suggest maybe like a lot of people start, is really taking a look at, what are the distinctions that your organization has between what is management versus leadership. And just because people are people managers doesn't mean they have that great skill or that quality about being a leader in the future's business, and the ability to actually cultivate the trust within their team, to have that leader guide them into the unknown. So the ability to, find the gap between where those leaders are at now and where do they need to be, that's going to significantly allow the people on their teams to follow them into creating the best version of the future.
And how do you find that gap?
That's a great question. We usually, we're usually doing a lot of intake sessions, and I'm usually getting to know a team. So we're look at, what are the results that you want to create? What are the results that you're creating? And then can we identify essentially what's in the way? So usually I'll look at that through two lenses. Really the distinction that I use is around who are we being versus what are we doing? So who we're doing is all of our competencies, our skill set, the action items, a lot of the tangible ways in which we're managing performance and teams. But I don't think that we pay enough attention in business to who we're being, right? And the being is actually the essence of culture. So when we think about like an organizational culture, that's very much influenced by how people are being. And I like to say that culture exists at every intersection that your team has with everybody they work with. So whether they're in communication with a vendor, a supplier, they're managing up, they're managing down, culture exists within those interactions. So if we want to optimize culture, we need to look at what's happening at those intersections. And so at those intersections is a great place to assess, all right, is this the culture? Is this the communication style? Is this the way of working and being that's going to get us to where we want to go? So looking at the lens through, again, not only the doing lens, the skill sets, the competencies, but then also through the being lens, which is the qualities and the characteristics. So when we think about like what does this team need to be doing and who do they need to be being, that's going to bridge the gap from where they are now to where it is that they want to that they want to go. That tracking?
Totally.
Yeah.
That's really fascinating because, I think people are just focused on the tasks, where we're going, like you said, what we're doing. How are we acting to get there?
Yeah. Meanwhile, they're breeding toxicity in the way they're providing feedback to their team, or they're avoiding feedback altogether, or, having contentious conversations that could otherwise, be navigated a lot more optimally.
Yeah. Just steamrolling everybody in the process.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
leadership style
true.
called obnoxious aggression is how I refer to it. Yeah.
Oh,
that comes from a book by Kim Scott called Radical Candor. And I think when we teach communication, we talk a lot about the ability to have radical candor, which is the ability to care personally for people, but also the ability to challenge them directly. A sweet spot there. But if we've got too low a level of personal care and a really high level of challenging directly, that can come out in like blaming, shaming, arrogance, providing, critical feedback to one person in front of a group, attacking people's personality, character. And then quite the opposite, if we have like a high level of personal care, but a low level of our ability to challenge directly, then we get into things like manipulative insincerity. So it's like I'm temporarily, avoiding an uncomfortable conversation with you that I know could truly make a difference for you. But maybe I'm being a little bit passive aggressive, or I'm talking to everybody else about the, performance enhancements I think you need, but I'm not talking to you directly about it. And that's usually in an effort to avoid feeling uncomfortable and to, on the surface, you're thinking you're caring for people very personally. But that doesn't necessarily elicit the best performance, and it doesn't allow us to create a culture of feedback that allows us to do things, as we say in tech, like fail fast and, move forward or expedite the progression of our team or our offering in the way that we want.
Yeah. So on the way here, we were talking about hard conversations and like the art of having hard conversations and how it's not, it's not supposed to be I'm attacking you and your character and who you are, but it's about being neutral in that. And I thought what you had to share about that was really interesting. But how do you train someone how to have a difficult conversation?
So I teach a method for feedback. We do the acronym SPIA, SBIA. So it stands for situation, behavior, impact, agreement. So in this model for feedback, we eliminate what some people are doing in terms of like demonizing or attacking someone's personality or character, and we're focusing strictly on behavior and then what the impact of that behavior may have been. So it might be something like, hey Hillary, you were supposed to deliver the QBR, within a week of quarter's end, and you've blown that deadline the last 3 times. And I'm just curious, what's in the way there? Because the impact is now the board's pissed. So I want to know like a little bit of what's in the way. How can I support you? And what's the agreement that we can make moving forward that's going to ensure that you start to deliver on time, right? So I'm not saying like, Hillary, you suck, you're always late, you're inept, right? There's ways in which, we can craft feedback and still be kind. I think in that vein, there's a distinction that I'm playing with recently around what is heat versus what is toxicity. And heat might be something like, we absolutely need to get this done. We have a commitment, we have a deadline, and I'm asking of you to do what's required of you to get that done. Mm-hmm. That might be heat. Toxicity might be like, you're really unreliable, and I don't necessarily believe in you that you can do this, and I'd like you to prove it to me that you can get this done on time, right? I mean, toxicity can go way further and beyond that. You can use your imagination. Yeah. But I'm playing with that because I think the other misconception about when we're cultivating optimal leadership inside organizations is that people think it's just like fluffy, feel good, like we're just making everybody feel good. No, we're about enhancing performance in a way where we're getting the best out of people, right? And we're not necessarily doing it from a place of a lack of psychological safety where now our leadership style is fear driven, right? And people are doing things because they're scared of us or because they're scared of losing their job. Right? I really believe that as leaders, we have an opportunity to cultivate environments for people where we can provide the environment for them to find and express who they are as genius and brilliant in the world. And part of that means hiring right and right people, right roles, making sure that people aren't operating too much in areas where they're not lit up. Mm-hmm. We all got stuff in our day-to-day that we don't love doing. Maybe you hate Slack or you hate email, but you got to do it. But what we don't want is people operating too much in those zones where they're more prone to burnout, they're less engaged, they're not necessarily enjoying what they're doing, and when people are operating in these spaces, they're typically not challenged in a healthy way either. So the ability to cultivate genius in people is about being able to provide the roles for them where they're good at what they do, they enjoy doing it, but there's also a healthy dose of like friction or challenge that keeps them engaged. Like, have you ever been in a role where you're like, yeah, I'm good at what I do and I like doing it, but after a while you're like, I'm not challenged and I'm getting bored, mm-hmm. right? So this is the opportunity we have as leaders, is to cultivate these environments for our team. Like, how do we actually get the best out of people?
I like that you're talking about like that middle ground, right? Between like, we all love each other. It's like kumbaya. We're not dealing with the hard stuff, but we're also just like really caring for you. And the other end of like, you're horrible at this, like the hard truth, like the mean truth, I would say. Like, there's a way to argue and not be mean, and there's a way to like get your point across without being, slanderous or unkind. So I think finding that balance of like, no, I'm going to hold you accountable, but we're going to do this together, but this is what's expected of you. Yeah. What are like some pretty common blind spots that you see when you go into these team assessments? Mm-hmm. Like, do you typically see like a combination of specific characteristics from different people where you're like, okay, this is probably what's causing this friction here, because we have the avoidant and then we have the aggressor or whatever. Mm-hmm. What's like common that you see in teams?
What I call the human condition. So the human condition is everyone's ability to want to be right, to not be wrong, to look good, and to not look bad or be embarrassed. And sometimes that human condition overrides our ability to show up above the line, overrides our ability to take responsibility, to take accountability. And another word for the human condition, you could insert ego in there if you want. But I do think that there is some aspects, like we need the ego on board, right? We don't want it in the driver's seat, but we don't want to be at odds with our ego either. So this is why, again, most of our work starts with emotional intelligence, because we want to cultivate the self-awareness within others for them to recognize the behavior and distinguish their behavior and how they're showing up. And is that creating the impact that they want to have on their team or within the organization? And if it's not, well then great, what's the impact you want to create? And what might be needed there. So the human condition I see a lot showing up just in the face of people. People don't like to be wrong. Mm-hmm. And that driver is, well, there's sometimes a driver there that gets in the way of being able to expedite, through challenges or change.
No, that definitely makes sense, especially in a work situation where you're like, you're paying me to do a job. So I'm not going to go. It's like that question, what's your biggest weakness in an interview? Mm-hmm. No, nobody's answering that.
Nobody's
honestly.
Answering that honestly.
No, it's total. Yeah, it's terrible. I don't think, what is it, like trying too hard or caring too much? Like whatever.
I often
sit
say,
ones.
or like, I don't know that I've ever had any client actually implement this, but we'll joke around sometimes when I'm helping people with, hiring or, defining the right person for a role or something. And we'll talk about, you should go do your interview in traffic and have them drive. Right? It's like you want to find out who, like, what people's weaknesses are or their challenging are. Go put them in real life scenarios where are going to be more challenging. Imagine doing an interview while you're like stuck in traffic on the highway like we were just in,
Oh my
right?
God.
You will really learn a lot about people in contentious situations. So
Oh yeah.
I think as much as you can endeavor to maybe not put people in those situations, but avoid asking questions like, what's your biggest weakness?
Yes.
Yeah. Because you're not going to get an authentic answer.
No. No.
And sometimes people don't know too, right? I think like, gosh, if somebody was going to ask me that, like, what would I say authentically? I might say I'm lazy sometimes. Might say I'm lazy sometimes. I'm not sure.
I would probably say I'm very indecisive.
Okay. Well, there's some work we can do. I can support you around that too.
I love that. Yeah, I would love that. Maybe. I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you just real briefly. The distinction is system 1 mind thinking versus system 2 mind thinking.
Okay.
So system 1 mind thinking is very intuitive. It's very automatic, and you don't have to think a lot about it. Okay. System 2 mind thinking is very analytical. It's usually very slow and very purposeful. And so what I'm hearing, and I'm projecting, and I'm not committed to being right or wrong, but I'm hearing that you might be more prone to system 2 mind thinking, right? If people that I find have a tough time making decisions are usually more prone to system 2 mind thinking. So there's ways in which you can cultivate your ability to get more into your system 1 mind. And those are things like creating awe-inducing experiences for yourself. So anything that you find awe-inducing, there's incredible research around what this can do for your decision making. So even time in nature, if you exercise, you're a walker, runner, hiker, going on different routes and different runs that will generate a different experience. You've heard the term shower thoughts before, I'm sure. Yep. So shower thoughts are system 1 mind thinking. Right? And so there are things that we can do that can cultivate our ability to get better at system. We can get better at both for sure, but you can do things if you find that you're more prone to one or the other. And then the real magic is looking at the decision that needs to be made and assessing, okay, what's the best system that I need to make this decision? Do I need to be a little bit more in my system 1, or do I need to be in my system 2? So think about, like, in our industry, like compliance, regulation. Some of these more like bureaucratic environments, they're going to need a lot of system 2 mind thinking, right? When we think about like anything, creatively, or like, designing a podcast episode, or we probably want to be a little bit more prone to system 1 mind thinking. And then there's a time where system 2 mind thinking can get in our way. Like I think about a writer with writer's block, for example. They're like so deep in their system 2, and they're like, sitting in front of their computer at their keyboard, and they're like, I'm not leaving till I can get the next line out. Yeah. And it's like, actually what they need there is a break. They need to go cultivate that system 1 a little bit more. And when we can give ourselves permission to do that, we'll find that we can often arrive at our decisions quicker, faster. So try it on. If it works, if it works, you can toy around or play around with that.
I'm willing to try anything at this point.
Well, there you go.
Okay.
Does that sound fair, that maybe you could cultivate a little bit more system 1 mind thinking? And I'm only saying this briefly just what you just shared.
No, 100%.
Cool.
100%. So what's the opposite then? If you are more system 1 thinking and you need more system 2, what does that look like?
It's probably slowing down your decision making process, right? System 1 mind thinkers are going to be very, very quick to make decisions. And there's actually some research that shows, depending on whatever your version of success is, but that, successful people often make quick decisions and change their mind very slow. But I think that that's like when we think about being in senior leadership roles where we've cultivated a particular experience, we're experts in our field, it's easier to tap into that system 1 because we've been here before, or we know how to navigate. We're really in touch with the future that we're creating. We know how best we're going to move us forward in that direction.
What's some research that you've come across recently, or research that you're like, this is a hill I'll die on, it's so true, like, here are the facts? What are you like super passionate about?
60% of people, when they leave a job, they leave their manager, not the job. That's what the research shows. So crappy leadership is costing companies billions of dollars. It's an investment to hire and to recruit. And if you're losing talent because your leadership sucks, that is a big problem. I will die on that hill, because this is, again, leaders that are potentially more committed to their human condition than they are to the most optimal performance of their team or their organization. And that shows up a lot. So that was the first thing that came to mind. Yeah.
I mean, you can keep going. Like, do you have any other hills? I mean, it could be a whole.
Well, I think another hill that I'm willing to die on is like, there is a bit of an archaic leadership style, like a more negative motivation leadership style, which, forgive me if I'm being ageist here, but really came out of like a boomer style of leadership. And a lot of us have bought into that, we need to be, a hard ass manager if we want to drive results. We need to, maybe moving a little away from heat and more into toxicity. Like, there is a particular leadership style that can be negative motivation, obnoxious aggression. And I do not believe, and have seen firsthand, the impact of what it means to move from that type of leadership style to one of more like psychological safety, as I mentioned, radical candor, what I call optimal leadership, really. So again, it's the ability to create environments where like we're not driving our teams from a place of fear. We're driving them from a place of vision and what's possible, and providing an environment where everybody knows that they have like, one of their gears is fitting in with another gear, and they know they're a part of like a larger system. And in that, we can create fulfillment for our teams and for ourselves.
Do people ever come to you and they're like, hey, I'm having a problem in my team. I have someone who's underperforming, and then I have someone who's overperforming, and it's causing a big imbalance because the overperformer is feeling, overworked, and they're not going to last very long, continuing to overperform and make up for the underperformer. The underperformer is not in a good space because they're probably feeling, most of the time, I would guess, I don't know, I would guess that they probably know that they're underperforming. They don't know what they need to do, or maybe it's just the pieces aren't fitting together there. So they're probably feeling pretty terrible about going to work and like their performance on things. If you're honest about it, if they're aware, how do you go in and approach that?
There's a distinction that comes to mind versus like accountability versus responsibility. And in an ideal environment, we will have people that will show up in their roles and they are responsible for more than they're accountable for. But the nuance, I'll give you an example, is just like if you walk into your office, maybe you work in an office and you see some trash on the reception table, or somebody left their empty coffee mug. You could very easily walk by that and be like, that's not my job, right? But when we can create environments or cultures where people are responsible for more than they're accountable for, you might pick up that coffee mug and throw it in the trash. Now, the nuance to this is that some people will take advantage of those of us that show up being responsible for more than we're accountable for, and then you'll get into people doing other people's jobs for them. So, it might not be everybody's favorite answer, but sometimes those high performers, they need to let the ball drop, especially where it is something that someone else is potentially accountable for. Now, to a particular degree, right? Like, but again, this is nuanced, and we're talking about different personalities and different cultures. So I would also be looking at what is the standard of culture at an organization that we're allowing an underperformer to be an underperformer, and we are allowing an overachiever to compensate for an underperformer. I would want to understand, like, what's your process for PIPs, for performance improvement plans? I
was going to ask you about this.
What
are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's needed, but they're needed to a point. But here's the thing: is like, if we're cultivating the most optimal cultures, we don't need PIPs, because we're able to potentially have conversations that are where we're all showing up above the line, and we can hold people accountable to what it is that they are accountable and responsible for, right? It's like, your job description is a great, and this is why I'm like a big advocate of like making sure people got accurate job descriptions, making sure people understand what are the roles and responsibility, within my role. How do I fit into the bigger picture? Now, of course, there are environments like startup environments in particular where multiple people are wearing multiple hats. You're building the plane as you're flying it, and there's times where, what's going to be required of the team go beyond the job description. Like, looping it back to this underperformer part is like, in what way have you communicated to that person, and what agreements have you created with that person that are allowing them to be held accountable to what their roles and responsibilities are? If they're not following through on that, what are the agreements that you need to make that will support them to do so? And if they're still not following through on things that they have agreed to, an agreement, by the way, is a clear what, by when, and it's documented, right? So even if it's, whatever, a Slack or an email, or you use Jira or Asana or whatever task management software, but that people understand the requests that are being asked of them. They are also in a reciprocal agreement to follow through on that. And then if they don't follow through on that, that is the opportunity for a performance improvement plan. And I like to categorize employees into 3 different areas. So engaged, disengaged, and actively disengaged. And, you can work with disengaged people and you can get them back to engaged. You want to get the actively disengaged people out of your company as fast as you can, because those are the people that are literally going out of their way to make things more difficult, to be more challenging, to potentially even sabotage things. I think performance improvement plans in certain cultures are there for a reason.
I think that's an interesting take, that you're saying they should never even have to get to that point.
I would hope as a leader, like with my team, like that I'm creating the psychological safety, the kind of culture where like we're having some pretty come to Jesus conversations before I'm putting you on a PIP. But that's the leadership I'm committed to. That's the way I want to run my business and my teams. And I get that that's not going to be necessarily for everyone, especially when you work in a massive organization, for example, right?
So looking at the gaming industry, I know you're across tech and you have some healthcare, but we just spent a week at G2E.
Yeah.
Do you see any patterns in the industry when it comes to teams and leaders, and maybe just like the overall reputation?
Yeah, I mean, I see a lot of similarities in any organization or any industry that has people in them.
Okay.
Because
that really narrowed it down.
Yeah, I'm really glad we got that
you
one
said
clear.
that. Yeah.
Okay, but I will say what I noticed in the gaming industry is trust is one of the biggest things. I mean, you could argue that again, cybersecurity, like this is the same tech, like across tech. Of course, trust is huge in any industry and in any way we're doing business. But I do see that it's more nuanced and it's more important in the gaming industry. Because you think about things like rev share deals, or I think about like the iGaming space and like the the affiliate deals that you're doing, or the ways in which you're constructing your deals that could potentially lead to a lack of transparency or a lack of disclosure, which inevitably might breed mistrust. So I do see some of those elements of trust maybe a little bit higher in our industry.
Are you saying that you think that they value trust within their teams more, or are you saying they lack
more
trust?
I'm thinking more from a partnership perspective.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
If someone gave you a mic in front of all the people who were at G2E, what would you say to them?
Wow.
No,
I think I would weave it back into the opportunity that we have as leaders is to cultivate environments where we're bringing out the best in people, where we are facilitating the roles where people get to cultivate who they are as genius and brilliant in the world. And so I teach a method called Zones of Flow by an author named Gay Hendricks. So the first is the zone of incompetence. So this is the stuff that you're not good at and you don't enjoy doing it. Next, we've got the zone of competence. This is the stuff that you're good at, but you don't enjoy doing it. Then we've got the zone of excellence, which is the stuff you're good at and you enjoy doing it. But ideally what we're after is the zone of genius. And that's the stuff that you're good at, you enjoy doing it, and as I mentioned earlier, there's a healthy dose of friction or challenge that is keeping you engaged and growing and in your growth. And what all the research shows is that people that are more prone to burnout or higher levels of stress in their life and in their career are operating predominantly in their zone of incompetence or competence. So I would say that as leaders, as organizations, this is so important, right people, right roles. And where we need transparency across teams, because sometimes I'll work with teams in like a group coaching or team coaching capacity, and we'll do zones of flow and be like, oh, this thing's in my zone of competence and I just hate it. And someone's like, that's totally my zone of genius. I'll take that on. I hate doing this. But unless we're in an environment where we're being open and somewhat vulnerable in what our optimal skill sets are and what we enjoy doing or where we're challenged and all these things, that's truly what teamwork is. That's truly what team cohesion is. we don't want to spend too much time in competence or incompetence. We'll burn out faster, we'll have higher levels of stress, and we won't get done typically what we need to do. And I will say that most of us have some aspects of competence or incompetence in our role, right? But that we don't want to be spending the majority of our time in those places. And as leaders, we have the ability to influence what that looks like for people.
Yeah, it is true. You are spending the majority of your time with these people.
Yeah.
So the idea of not pouring into them feels a little short-sighted. But maybe they just don't have the tools, Emily. The tools that they need by taking one of your courses.
That's right. Come and work with us.
Okay, so switching gears a little bit. Do you have any good gaming stories? You've been in the industry a long time.
Define good.
Well, that is subjective.
I'm going to be dating myself and outing myself a little bit here, but I think I was telling you, like, my career started affiliated with a more black hat online gaming operator.
Mm-hmm.
But I was on
Real quick, what does black hat mean for people who might not know?
So the unregulated market. I didn't really know. Like, listen, I was like,
oh, no judgment
in my
here.
20s,
Yeah.
in my 20s, getting involved and didn't even understand. Like, this was like pre-UEGA. Like, I didn't even understand that I was working for what I now know to have been like a black hat operator. I was on that team when that founder achieved billionaire status. He was on the cover of Forbes.
For his black hat?
Well,
company?
for his, I mean, it wasn't positioned like that.
Okay.
But he also had a music label. He had an MMA brand at the time.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyone that's listening to this that knows this story, I'm not going to name names, but anyone that knows, you could probably, do your own research and find out. But anyways.
It can't be that hard.
Exactly. It's not. If you just ask me what news media outlet I used to work for, that would be a pretty easy answer. But anyways, I digress there. It started with gaming. That was just exciting times, to really watch what was possible in the early days of the internet and the concept of, online casinos and poker rooms when this was still relatively, a new concept. And that's the thing is he was black hat because there just wasn't regulated, regulation wasn't a thing in North America. Europe has been regulated for eons, but back in those days, it was it wasn't necessary. I'm sure it became a conscious choice at one point, but back in the day, there just wasn't, it was just legal loopholes that you were running with, right? So.
Yeah.
I feel like the censor in me is coming. I was like, stop talking. Don't say too much. Yeah.
That's crazy. So, yeah, well, clearly it worked out for him because that contributed to his billionaires. Yeah. Is he still a billionaire?
Yeah, he's still a billionaire. He's got a family office now. He's now focused more in the blockchain space. He's out of the gaming space, but he's more focused in blockchain.
He did what he needed to do. So who do you think should come on the podcast next?
Well, I heard you just had Julia on, so that's very cool. She's always an insightful character.
My favorite German.
Yeah, totally. I think my favorite German too. I mean, you're wearing your Global Gaming Women shirt, so I might, suggest that Pam Buckley, EVP from GGW.
I've been trying to get Pam on for months now.
Oh, really?
She literally works downstairs.
Well, the thing is, I mean, now that GTV's over, you might have a better opportunity of getting on her schedule.
That's true. She is in high demand.
And I just think that since she came on, it's just been so great to watch everything that she's been doing and all the work that GGW is doing. Paris Smith would be a great one to get on.
Bro, if you could get Paris on here, she's incredible.
Yeah.
I love her. I met her at Bet Bash, and someone was like, you should be on her podcast. And she said, yes. I'm looking at her, I'm like, there's no way she's going to remember me a week from now because she meets so many people.
Yeah,
she's
but
just
that's relationship building
so
is all
incredible.
about.
Oh, for sure. But
Yeah.
I'm me and my little podcast, we would love to have you. Quick note about Pam though. I had only talked to her via Zoom from the meetings that we're in. We finally got together. We just look hilarious side by side because she is so short.
Yes.
And I'm quite tall. I'm 5'10", and we just met each other. We're like, what is happening? It was such a crazy juxtaposition next to each other. We were just laughing about it because it's probably a good foot between us.
Right. Yeah. And you would never know from just being on a Zoom call.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Most people assume that I'm quite short.
Really?
Yes, I get that a lot.
Oh, I mean, I'm trying to think about like if I had to tap into my impression of you because I knew who you were online before I met you in person.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I might concur actually.
yeah.
I don't think I would have guessed you were 5'10".
Well, no one else does either.
There
So,
you go.
well, it's been great having you on today, Emily. I'm so glad we powered through.
We're here. We did it.
Yes.
G2E's over. This is my last obligation before I am truly off the clock.
Love
So this is a great way to finish out the week at G2E. Hillary, thank you so much for having me.